identifying the government as organized crime is a difficult thing for an idealistic person to do because in such an incident, then you have no place that you can turn. So you want to keep the idea of a civilized government that you can appeal to in mind. Now, Seattle Clubhouse pride themselves on building momentum for this catastrophic situation. Why they would want to do that, I don't propose to guess, but that they do want to do that is from their own language. The blackmail syndicate, who Pittsburgh thinks have a good thing going out in Seattle, throw in my face that Dee Dee seduced me when she was overdeveloped experience in 12 with the help of an armed militia, and I was 13, because it's a strategic deployment by personnel who arranged this entrapment from the U.S. Army. How they think that speaks to a greater moralism from fascism, I don't propose to guess, but that they do is perfectly clear in the state of Washington's routines. State of Washington in SODO, which stands for South Downtown, I guess, on the busway has a exterminator sign which uses the two equals for an E, the three straight lines for an E, which symbolize equity. It's one of the most case-specific symbols of the Pussy Bowl operation, which was clocked to the AIDS attack. They have no pride whatsoever in that they do not admit that what they are selling logically makes no sense. They're selling the casino of winning and losing on behalf of those who murdered liberal society. If you look at the 60s, you can see how this was set up. The fascists had one thing that they always punished liberal society for, and that was its so-called decadence. The cabaret scene that Liza Minnelli dramatized was very akin to the Carousel Club that helped organize the pimp movement with the help of Scorsese, Reagan, and Hollywood that executed JFK because of his dishonest standard of philandering. Why would liberal society accept this in the name of a movement that actually had people like Stokely Carmichael saying out loud the position of women in the movement is prone? You can say what you want to about circumstance, time, and place, but that actually was said by one of the honchos of the movement that the NAACP represent, saying that they have a good thing going and brutally torturing a child and poisoning him and stalking him with panopticon home invasion. So the city of Seattle are people who have no pride. They don't even propose to try to make it have any sense. After Martin Luther King and the Kennedys were shot in what has now become door-to-door assassination, which Seattle NAACP endorse door-to-door assassination programs, which is perfectly clear. After King and Kennedy were murdered, we had a sex, drugs, and rock and roll movement led by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. In other words, the anthem that describes the 60s transition, the transformation caused by these assassinations, was the song You Should Have Known Better. That is the anthem of the AIDS attack. And as everybody knows, McCartney is a perpetrator of the door-to-door assassination movement. It's not just Donald Trump. But what you have are a lot of people like Brian Eno, Yoko Ono, Donald Trump, Low Key, and the alternative media scene like Abby Martin and Rainier Klalik, who bet the house that normalizing genocide wouldn't create a world of total genocide. They follow the idea of you need two wings to fly. Paul McCartney's Wings came up with the idea of two axes, an axis of resistance and an axis of exploitation, which like the two triangles in the Star of David, working together in a lawnmower of conflict controlled by the oligarchs. Israel's message to the whole world was an echo of their production system from David Geffen Corporation of the AIDS attack. It was the idea that if you wanted hell, we'll give you hell. The so-called leadership provided by the Beatles was to allow that, as long as artificial intelligence didn't get the better of Paul McCartney's stake in the Wax Museum franchise. So the Axis wings closed ranks by not discussing Gail Burst in the Texas School Book. You have a sort of sandbagger-law of sandbaggers who covered for Yoko Ono, David Geffen, and Gail Burston, who worked together with the help of this momentum-building enterprise in Seattle for Cataclysm, who don't make any pretense of making any sense at all. They have no pride. They can't address or try to explain why they were so absolutely determined to help Donald Trump accomplish his presidency with Nosferatu by advocating for Ono and Gail Burston. They're out on the streets protesting ICE. They're protesting Gaza, God save Gaza. And they're protesting cuts to Medicaid and so forth. But they're refusing to show any self-reflection on how they allowed all that to happen. Cory Booker lives in a state of joy because the black man got the trophy in the Pussy Bowl War. Obama made no secret. Trump dares me to tell on them. He dares me to say I'm a white sacrifice because that's what I am. Obama made no secret that his only interest in the matter was victimizing a white for snitching. That's all he did. That's all he cared to do. He didn't care to stop them, to intervene, to engage in emergency diplomacy for people in their line of fire like Gaza. And Seattle Clubhouse openly brayed of building momentum. They put on a awkward guerrilla theater. Help me, Spock, with somebody from the post office who had a Holocaust history to him. So the whole storyline about the Jews was a promotion of not never again, but rather this time we will do it to someone else. And Seattle swears by their panopticon peep show. They do door-to-door assassination. They poison me in my mouth. This is two axis. It's not Democrats versus Republicans. The situation in Gaza makes that perfectly clear. It's genocidalists versus nobody. Genocidalists should be versus the civics leaders who don't want to see public school children abused, who don't consider it a provincial norm, who ask why was it possible to keep track of me in Raleigh, North Carolina, but not in Eastminster District of Pittsburgh. We are dealing with the criminally insane. I plead with you for meaningful humanitarian intervention.